Good morning. Hmm. This will be a talk today that um, I want to talk about not knowing and how it perhaps might be the most important form of knowing. And the invitation here, as always, is to listen the way your body wants to listen. Really just allowing your system to follow where its attention and awareness is naturally drawn. And everything I share is an invitation, and it's not coming from a place that assumes that I'm right. Instead, that hopefully talking about these things and towards the things I'm speaking to um, hopefully can help you find your way to your own wisdom. And I think that's a decent lead into talking about not knowing, unknowing, uncertainty, and why it's so important. Why is it so important? Well, because it is always part of our experience. And so often it's what drives us towards neuroticism and conflict and anxiety. It's discomfort with the naturally ambiguous and uncertain nature of life. Obviously, you can't know everything, but in fact, we know so little that even when we are connected to something that could be considered as close to fact as possible, even that is situated in so much negative space that it really sort of rounds to zero. In fact, just framing something in words and concepts necessarily removes it at least one step of processing away from direct experience. And so at best, it can point to truth. One thing that getting sick with chronic illness from COVID, and specifically this sort of post-viral fatigue, chronic fatigue. One thing it made clear was that so much of the way I was operating in the world and communicating um, involved anticipation, performance in certain ways. And even as somebody who spent a lot of time working towards authenticity and being quote unquote in the moment, there were still a lot of layers of subtlety trying to control that were revealed to be um, effortful and really became at times excruciatingly exhausting to my nervous system, to my body, to my brain, which is still feels inflamed. And now, as I've worked really hard the last few years relearning how to be a human in the new context of a chronically ill body, what's allowed it to be much more sustainable is welcoming not knowing. When I get on these calls or on when I get on to record like this, I really don't know what's going to come out, what I'm going to say. I might have an idea of a topic that had popped in that feels alive. But it's very much this practice of unknowing that allows me to speak the way my body actually wants to speak. And if I wasn't doing that, these things would be exhausting. I've tried, becomes exhausting. My body starts to crash and I can't keep up with recording and making content. There's a lot of trust and surrender in this practice, and that can be scary. So it does become a practice of welcoming fear. And there's times where that's difficult, but really the hardest part of fear is the uncertainty, the doubt, the I don't know what's going to happen. But that's always the case. You don't know what's going to happen. And getting comfortable with that, really getting comfortable with whatever things could be considered always the case. It's part of what reveals what is unconditional. Mm. That seems to reveal things like peace and groundedness and joy more often. It could be wrong, but at least that's been the path for me. It hasn't gotten rid of pain or confusion, grief, anger. In fact, when those things show up, they're incredibly visceral. as potent and powerful and difficult as they ever were before. But because I'm less reactive to the flavors of uncertainty around them, the unknowing that I used to attach to them, or perhaps the unknowing that I was attached to. Hmm. Then it seems there's fewer layers of distancing from experience. And the very understanding of what a lot of those phenomena are starts to shift. And the further I go, the more artfully and naturally I show up in my connections because I'm spending less time bracing against uncertainty, needing to always be prepared for what could go wrong because of uncertainty. It's funny that now that I've given up the neurotic need to compulsively prepare for what could go wrong, I'm more prepared when things go wrong. And I, at least to my perception, meet the world more fully. And there's more connectedness to what my actual power is in cultivating a healthier world around me. Because there's this really quick compulsive habit that I think many of us, maybe most of us, maybe all of us, for much of our lives get into, where it's like when there's uncertainty, there's a compulsive, quick habit to fix or figure out or work to prepare for what it could portend. And it's so automatic and that it keeps us in habitual thinking patterns as opposed to actual connection. And when we're so swamped with those neurotic habits, then the only connection that breaks through are more intense forms of connection. So people seek out sex, drugs, indulgent foods, um, highly stimulating content. None of those things are bad in and of themselves when they're related to in healthy ways. But there's so much of the sustainable whole foods of connection and joy that are much more available and abundant when I'm not compulsively reacting to the inherent uncertainty of life. There's so much uncertainty in connecting to other humans. It drives our insecurity, it drives our faux confidences. Finding confidence isn't about getting rid of uncertainty and connection. It's simply about being okay with it. And when you're okay with that uncertainty, then exactly the type of connection that wants to emerge between you and others will show up. At least that's my thinking and experience so far. I could be completely wrong. In fact, in words and in so many ways I am, because it's not about the words. It's not about what I say. It's not about knowing. Because when I make it about knowing, then not knowing is becomes a bad position. And knowing is always precarious. So knowing, not knowing, both fine, both welcome, both not really what it's about. What it's about. Oh, oh what a weird phrase. Is a constant revelation. Life is this organic unfolding. It's always revealing itself. Enjoy the ride. See what happens if you get curious about just letting yourself not know. Comfort with not knowing is natural curiosity, effortless curiosity. And if I had to venture a guess, it's already here. Then again, I could be completely wrong. Take care, y'all, of yourself and all the beings, human and non human, you're in connection with.